Okay, so recording now. Hello, Internet. My name is Mike Bennett, creator of The Bunny Perspective, and we're doing a new thingy. It's sort of on the level of a podcast, assuming this uploads fine and everything. Eventually, there'll be an audio version and all that, but I want to test it out to make sure there's some interest and everything. We're tentatively calling it League of Mobas. It is a podcast about League of Legends, but also other MOBAs and kind of comparing and contrasting. And my co-host and good friend Dan Olson is with me. Dan.
Good to be here.
And Dan's Canadian, so it's international.
Getting those CoPro bucks off of government subsidies.
There you go. See, never mind. We can't turn this into a political thing because I'll just start ranting about the government on my end. So, but yeah, this
was supposed to be a throwaway joke about film production. But...
I know, but all I can think about is that your government pays you to make bad things sometimes. Like Gooby, Gooby is a movie that the Canadian government paid for.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I can think of worse things that the Canadian government has paid people to make.
I bet you can, but Gooby is the only one I know about for sure. So anyway, this is like it's the main focus is a little bit on us, a little bit on League, or mostly on League, and then how that topic relates to maybe other MOBAs, or if we just have a discussion about other MOBAs, maybe that's the whole thing we do. Personally, I'm new to the genre. I haven't really played more than 2 or 3 of them, and not very much outside of League. League, I've dropped hours into. They don't clock the hours, but I have something like 236 wins, and I'm terrible. So if that tells you anything, those of you that know about League of Legends at all, that'll be helpful. If you're new to League of Legends, this is probably not the podcast for you. There's a bunch out there.
Maybe it is. Like, okay,
maybe.
I would say that sort of the hook here is that we are not the greatest. Like I'm okay, but I don't do ranked games. I don't find that level of competition to be something that engages me. I don't find it interesting. I don't find it fun. So we're definitely coming at it from a very different angle than a lot of than sort of what the usual would be, because you sort of expect that it's like, oh well, the people who are going to be doing these sort of podcasts, like they're either really good or they're just deeply immersed into like the competitive scene or this, that, or whatever. But we're coming at it from a little bit more of a casual or perspective on it.
I like to say
and
we're coming
intellectual
from, yeah.
Because my engagement with MOBAs by and large starts with a very intellectual approach, because I hated the genre. I think like for a long time I thought it was actually like a really, really bad format. And in fact, I agree with past Dan about MOBAs being a bad format until about probably like 2010 or so was when I think League started taking actually a fairly critical look at the genre and making like more fundamental changes to their approach that that started fixing problems.
And I think we both agree that League is the best of all of them currently. I don't think there's going to be too many. Like, there's a lot that are coming out that are changing the genre quite a bit, which I think is good. Like Gigantic.
I would say, I mean, there's one that I think is bad, and sort of, well, actually there's a few that are like legitimately just sort of terrible because like they don't play well, they're unbalanced, their communities are horrible, so on and so on and so forth. But I think any of the ones that people would be like, oh well, should I play such and such, or any of the ones that you've heard about, like they've all got some selling point. Like even if like Dota 2, where I'm like, okay, the selling point is that it's ridiculously obtuse. You've got a community that is like all about just adhering to blind tradition and feeling superior about themselves because their game is like
it's
ridiculously overbuilt, and that's absolutely like, that makes it, I think it's really, really unfun, and it's difficult to, like, the readability is terrible and all of these other things, but that's definitely a hook for some people. Like, some people want something that is like, that is almost needlessly hard. And I can't judge people for that because I play Dwarf Fortress.
Oh yeah, no, and I'm coming at this from the perspective where the reason I like League is for a year or so I basically for about 5 years I quit video games on a hard level. Like I slowly stopped buying console games and slowly started getting into tabletop experiences like Netrunner, like deep kind of competition games. The problem with that is I live in nowhere, Michigan, where no one plays anything that I like. So for a long time, especially for the last year, and I've been pretty vocal about this, I've had pretty bad depression. And part of the reason I got out of depression was a puppy, quitting sugar, and playing competitive games again. And I started with Hearthstone because I could play it on my Mac. Then I started playing League on my Mac. And then I liked it enough that I've invested in a PC. And gosh, it runs so much better. So my position on this is like I really didn't know what League of Legends was until July of this year. So I'm starting in a position where I have no real hard history with this genre. I haven't been watching it, and in fact denounced video games for a very long time, and kind of coming back and realizing you can't really denounce anything because that's dumb. And League's definitely my gateway drug back into playing stuff again and enjoying it. And where I think where we're going to diverge a little is eventually I do want to get into the hard like competitive scene, but that's not what this podcast is about. Because you can get that anywhere. And in fact, if you want places to learn how to play this game better, Trinity Force podcast is one. The League of Legends Anonymous is interesting. They're pretty funny and they're very unprofessional, which is always fun. And there's a bunch of others. You can just search it. And the ones that have been going on a long time will teach you how to play better. All of them have taught me how to play a lot better. That's not what we're necessarily what we're here for. What we're here for is to kind of discuss.
If we teach you how to play better, it'll be by accident.
Yeah, it'll be total mistake. Like I'll accidentally be like, "Oh, Yorick is OP right now," because he really is right now. But we'll discuss that when we get into and I don't necessarily like a lot of these podcasts. The entire episode will be patch whatever. That said, our topic is going to be patch 420. I have a hard time not passing up on something like that. Because it's patch 420. They made a lot of marijuana puns in the patch notes. I'd like to also point out.
They did, yes.
Yeah, it's so funny. Especially there's something like burn trees all day. I mean, play trees all day. So good. So smart. Good. They know their audience, sort of. And a lot of the podcasts scoffed at that and ignored it. I'm putting a hard beat on it. Congratulations, Riot,
your
and realizing
target market.
Marijuana is good. Because honestly, I think eventually they're going to have to ban marijuana as a performance-enhancing drug because I'm way more calm and collected on pot, and I'm way more angry not. But, and you can ask the people I play with, too, because I definitely get surly when I lose. And we're trying to start the episodes, like right now we're in the intro bit. We gotta try to start the first 15 minutes or so of these things where we're talking about things that are not necessarily MOBAs. And that's what our intro now. If you don't know who I am, I used to make an internet show that people liked, and if you want to watch it, it's still there. And Dan makes an internet show that's way better, and we both use puppets. So look at that. That's how we're connected. Puppets. And if we get other people on, that'd be great too. But for right now, it's just us, and we both of us talk enough that filling an hour is not even close to a problem. So, like, the topics we want to discuss in general, just to give you, like, we were already kind of talking about this, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but we want to talk about how Riot has handled feminine characters. We want to talk about, especially compared to games like Smite or really just most other games that aren't thinking about their role in this whole sexism thing. Mm-hmm. And also just maybe just how we feel about the lore, or maybe what we think is really interesting about certain skins or whatever, which is also part of what we're talking about today. And yeah, like just stuff that isn't necessarily how are you going to win and get better, and because there's a million people that are doing that. And when I was sitting down trying to make an idea for what a podcast of this could be, the only thing I could think of, because I'm not good enough, and I would say Dan would agree, he's not good enough. We're not going to get you out of bronze. That's not.
Oh, I could.
I don't know if I can get out of bronze. I played literally one ranked game, and I won. But
if I had enough Ativan to keep the anxiety at bay, in most games I'm a high silver, low gold level player.
I would say I don't know where I'm at. I really don't.
You know, the main thing that like holds me back is not skill. It's that it's that ladder, like both ladder anxiety and just my general dislike of competition and the sort of environment that fosters. Sure. So to use World of Warcraft as an example, like playing arenas in World of Warcraft, like it's like if someone dug through my history, or is like, you know, started digging through my achievements, they'd see it's like, oh well, you know, you never hit like 1600 rank, and part of that is that, you know, that competition, or the way that these competition mechanisms are set up, is that it's like, it's not just a matter of like being good enough to win. It's also a matter of like playing a certain amount per week in order to be accurately ranked. Right. And, you know, you don't get ranked if you don't play X number of games. And the thing is that like arena games, it's like I would enjoy doing them with friends, but after about 4 or 5 games, you know, like I'd be basically burnt out on them for the next like 3 days. And so then it's like next time you log on, it's like, hey, you want to do some more arena matches? And it's like, nah. Yeah. You want to do some more arena matches? Nah. We'll get to that on Sunday. And then by like Sunday, you're just like, maybe you grind through a couple, and then that then burns me out for like, and then we don't even play any like the next week. And so it's like, I'm just really bad at the, you know, that kind of interaction. It does, you know, I can't keep up with it, or I it's not that I can't keep up with it, I don't keep up with it. It right. doesn't hook me in enough that I'm like, yeah, I gotta log in and get those games, and like where I'm sitting there, it's like, yeah, let's do that. So because it is sort of a burst interest for me, I never end up with any kind of like reasonable rank.
Which is fine. There's a lot of like YouTubers that are just, they play fine, they play interesting, but they're there for just, they don't play ranked. You know, a lot of them are very proud of the fact, like they almost spit upon ranked, which is fine. Yeah,
I can understand where they're coming from. I try to avoid doing that. Like I certainly used to do that. Like, you know, it'd be like, I don't do ranked, as though that's like something to be proud of. Like, yeah, I don't think it's something to be proud of one way or the other. Like if you do ranked, you do ranked. If you don't do ranked, you don't do ranked.
Right. I
get why it appeals to people, but I mean, it doesn't feed me.
Right.
You know.
And I have a similar provocation, and I think the difference for me, I used to hate Magic the Gathering tournaments, but mostly because you have to pay money to get into them. And then when you lose, it's just like so much worse. You're like, oh, there goes my freaking $10. So, with League and Ranked, yes, I know that there's going to be anxiety about losing where I am in position on Ranked, because I have that in Hearthstone when I was playing that a lot. But it's not even close to the anxiety as losing the $10 I put in. And also just, you know, and just being stomped by things that you're not aware of because I wasn't paying attention to the meta back then, and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, I think with those attitudes, I think you guys can kind of figure out where we are with this. and where we're going to go in the future, and hopefully we'll just get more and more in depth with kind of even maybe the marketing, and we could do several episodes on the genius of Riot's microtransactions all day. Just the fact that nothing is a dollar for dollar comparison is that's evil and brilliant.
It's evil, but that's standard. I mean, Microsoft's been doing that for a decade.
Yeah. If that's a standard that Riot did not instill. That was there already.
It was there already, and they just grabbed it. And I guess to sort of say, it's like, okay, well, why should anyone bother listening to us? And I guess I should explain a little bit about what I said earlier about my initial sort of engagement with Mobas. So I've been playing games like I've basically nonstop since I was 3.
Right.
And I was big into Warcraft 3, and of course Dawn of the Ancients started as it was a Warcraft 3 multiplayer game mod. Or not even necessarily mod, just like map variant, custom map, and it built into this whole thing. And for me, like by the time it was starting to get really big, and we were getting all of these basically second generation MOBAs coming out, League and so on and so forth. In my mind, that like it was not a good situation. I think Dawn of the Ancients, like the original, is sort of this spectacular achievement of making something out of limited resources.
Kind of like Gary's.
You're working with you're taking an existing engine, you're taking an existing rule set and procedurality, and you're making it do new and interesting things. But you're also limited by what that is capable of, and you're limited. It's dictating a lot of the language of your interaction for you. So things like, it's like, okay, well, how fast do your characters like turn around? Like if you change direction, like how quickly can they change direction? Things like that, like the physics engine and so on and so forth. All of that was dictates how Dota was going to play.
Right.
And the second generation ones, by and large, didn't take any sort of critical eye to that. And so they were taking something that was basically invented by hardcore players for other hardcore players, and he had evolved over the years into something even more hardcore. And they were just sort of saying, it's like, oh, well, we'll just make that. We'll just reskin that. And League certainly at the beginning was very much just sort of this reskin of Dota with like a couple changes, but it wasn't a revolutionary change. It was not like, it was not radical going down to the root assumptions and saying like, all right, what makes this work, what doesn't, what can we change with, and how is that going to impact the game?
Right.
And sort of all of this combined, I became really interested in the fact that it's like, okay, well, these games are clearly popular for a reason. Like, they're not going to be coming out with these if people aren't playing them.
Right.
And so like, so how did it get popular? Why is it popular? What engages people about it? And so it was really kind of a very philosophical, just curiosity sort of thing that brought me into it. And as I started playing, I became really, really obsessed with sort of the learning curve of like how these games teach you how to play, or the fact that these games don't teach you how to play at all. And that is, in many ways, that like was the worst thing. And so I had a friend who was finishing up a degree at the time in computer science, and he had a design class. And so we actually so I helped him work on a fairly large project about the focusing on the learning curve of League of Legends. Okay. And how the player acquires information through play, and sort of the priority of information within that, like what, kind of like looking at like, okay, what should they, like what does the game teach? What do other players focus on teaching, and what should be taught? Like what order are things actually important to learn? Because I would see this, and this was a carryover from a lot of other things, like, particularly I used to do hardcore raiding in World of Warcraft, right. And you would always see people who would mimic, like you'd have successful guilds who would kill bosses, and then everyone else would immediately mimic their strategies, unquestioningly.
Which is very similar to how LCS influences League a little bit.
Absolutely. And we see similar things. And what I started to realize in that is that people will, they latch onto the forms of things because form is a particularly easy thing to communicate. You can boil it down to a list. You can tell someone okay, do this, do X, then Y, and, Z will come out the other side. Right. And often that works. It works well enough that people don't often think about it, but then it leads to a lot of frustration when you're, maybe, let's say, from my own life, you're in a guild that's currently disintegrating because the officers refuse to alter the strategy in order to compensate for the strengths and weaknesses of our guild makeup, our raid makeup.
Right. And League kind of has that built in.
Yeah, and so you get people sort of blindly adopting, it's they just take what successful people are doing as gospel and replicate it without actually understanding why things are being done the way that they are. And I would see this, and how this goes back to League is that when I would be seeing people training other people, or you'd be getting advice from other players for how to play, or let's say you're in a game and you're doing poorly and someone decides to tell you how to do your job.
Which happens all the time for
which
those
happens
of you
all
that
the time.
Have no idea it happens all the time.
What's the advice that they would give? And the thing that I started to notice is that the advice that people would give was almost always bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't wrong. It was just inappropriate. So it's you're playing, you see people teaching new players and they'll be telling them all about last hits and stutter stepping and stuff like this.
Blocking.
Or they'll be talking about, blocking or line of sight or warding the bush.
Your hitbox
it's make sure that you've got your good ward coverage in the jungle, and making sure that it's and these will be in bot games, and they'll be positioning within lane in order to have a buffer so that you can't get ganked from the river
right
quite as easily. And it's this is someone, they're telling all of this to someone who's currently on game number 3.
Exactly. And you can't, I had no, wards were not a thing I did for the first 50, 60 games. They're not a thing that I would even, because for me and for a lot of other people who just start, this might be their first, 3/4 top down, click to move video game.
Yeah.
Not everyone plays that type of game, but they might be interested in hey, why is everyone playing this League of Legends thing?
Mm-hmm. And so that was my initial route of interest, was sort of a pedagogical approach to it, education, the learning curve, the flow of information and stuff like that. And so I played it a whole bunch and then put it aside, and then I discovered the Monarch Kog'Maw skin and said I need to have that, and then started playing again. And
then you found the emotional core. That Monarch.
And at that point they had started making actually some more changes to things, and so it's been this running interest with me. Every time they redo the anytime they revamp their tutorials, I go and play them, and I'll install Mobas just to play their tutorials.
That's interesting. I didn't know they changed them that often. The new one's
they don't change them that often, but whenever they do, I go back and replay them.
The new one is good. I think it's very. I mean, it didn't teach me how to play necessarily. I remember it very vaguely because I ran through it to get to the actual. Because my understanding of it, I was talking to a friend, because at the time I was playing Hearthstone all the time, and he goes, "Yeah, I watch people play." It was my friend. He goes, "I watch people play Hearthstone in between games of League of Legends because high level League of Legends people, they have huge wait times, so they can get 2 or 3 games in while they're waiting for a League game to start."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What is League of Legends? And is it anything like Diablo 3? Because again, I just started playing Diablo 3, and it was the first time I liked one of those games. I've played Diablo, I played Diablo 2, I had friends, I played with those friends, and I never liked them. I never liked Phantasy Star Online that much. And then WoW I got into WoW, but I've never maxed a character and level, for instance. And Diablo was the first time I really was into it. So then I was just looking for something free that I could play that it was even remotely similar. League really isn't like Diablo. I got a totally different experience from League. And now I'm at the point where I can lose and not have a bad time, especially if it's a really tight game. And I also find myself in tighter games than I used to. Like, we'd have a lot of games where people would surrender at 20 immediately early on because we're all bad. And then, I've slowly gotten to the point where I don't feel... I wouldn't describe myself as bad. I also wouldn't say I'm competitive. But I'm getting there.
It certainly helps my anxiety that whenever we do team builder, your MMR is low enough. And originally, you were... I think the first couple matches we played, you were level 6 or 7 or something. Yeah. Basically, whenever the team builder, first unlocked. And I was just wiping the floor with our opponents, and I wasn't even thinking about it. And it was suddenly I realized that I was at 30 kills and 2 deaths, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And it's oh, they're noobs. They're literally new players. I felt a little guilty.
Yeah. You're running over people like my girlfriend who played one game and then never played again because it's such a bad
And I was like,
experience.
oh, that's bad. And that's definitely and that's explicitly kind of an issue that that any competitive game, that runs off of a matchmaker, that it needs to deal with, is that it's okay, what do we do if someone is I'm going to try this game. Oh, hey, I unlocked the public queue and I got killed so hard in ways that I am incapable of comprehending,
right?
Because it's meaningless information to me. It happened so fast, I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. I'm frustrated. I'm never playing this again.
And I definitely had that. There are times when I've literally said to myself, I can't believe I spent this much money on this game. I hate this game so fucking much. Because just some random thing will happen. I don't understand why it happened. And if you're like that, people playing League that are kind of new to this but frustrated, and I would say just push through it, because eventually you'll see every champion. I've seen every champion, and eventually you'll figure out how to beat them, or someone will beat you and you can look it up. There's a million sources of information about why this champion beat you, and for why can't I move? I click everything and it doesn't work, and we all go through that for sure, because there's literally almost 125 champions.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm up to 80 or something at this point. It's partly IP, partly I'll buy them when they're on sale. But and now I got to the point where, and this is going to get into 420, the patch, because again, what a great patch 420 is so far. I've experienced quite a few from starting in July till now. I think I started 412 or 414. So and they've released since I've started. The first character they released was Gnar since I started, and I love the Yordles. Let's get that out of the way. First things I bought, I got all the Yordles, even if I had no interest in playing them. Poppy was last. I'll say that now, and I actually like her a lot now. And I have skins for almost all the Yordles too. I think actually,
that's pretty great, yo.
I think I have a skin for every Yordle. Yeah. So, but I love it. I love the skins for these characters. I love this concept. And 420, especially if you're starting now, is probably the best time to start, because the Rift has never looked better, and it's never been more interesting to play. And I'm, without getting too technical, and I teased Dan with this a little bit earlier. I watched LCS it's like a pre-season kind of thing.
Exhibition games.
Thank you. They're exhibition games. This is the first one that they've done on patch 420. Before that, it was like the old patch. I didn't even watch them because they're not relevant to me anymore. They're interesting, don't get me wrong, but it's it was the same meta as it was before, and that's boring. I've seen all of that. I watched Worlds. Everyone played the same crap. I watched a game, and you can look this up, and I recommend if you're even remotely interested in LCS and you missed it, the Unicorns of Love game versus TSM, and that's a European team, Unicorns of Love, versus a North American team, TSM, Team Solo Mid. Team Solo Mid's like huge. They went to Worlds. They placed pretty well.
Yeah,
they did pretty well for the Koreans. Destroyed us, of course, because they take, and not for racist reasons. They just take it seriously. We don't take it nearly as seriously as Koreans do, and that's fine. They deserve to win because of it. And I think Mata and I'm blanking on their ADCs, but when they are hanging out together and talking, they're amazing together, and they deserve to win. From Samsung White, 100%, those guys deserve to win. They work really hard for it, and fine. But anyway, so the Unicorns of Love, besides having an amazing name for a team, picked crazy characters in crazy positions. And most notably, they picked a character named Twisted Fate, who's most predominantly known as a mid laner. And is a very good mid laner. He was in most of the World's games. I don't know what his percentage for picks were, but it was pretty high. Not to get too technical, just means how many times it was picked or the game. But anyway, they picked Twisted Fate, like second round of picking, and they picked Xerath to counter Twisted Fate. Well, the counter to, and then I'm explaining it mostly for everybody, the counter to Xerath is LeBlanc.
See, and here's actually a great example of sort of the information flow, because I'm listening to this, and even though I know who all of these characters are, just in saying like Xerath, that communicates like so much information in a dense little package. Right.
If you know anything about the Xerath character, he's an AP. If you know what he looks like, you can imagine the character.
But if you don't know who Xerath is, then everything that you said is nonsense.
Right, and I apologize. I'm going to keep this part brief and then go back to the. But all of you that know what we're talking about will enjoy this bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they pick Xerath to counter TF. Oh no, TF is going in the jungle, and they pick LeBlanc, and LeBlanc totally spanks Xerath on a competitive level. Now, don't take this as salt. Don't go taking my advice and doing this in ranked, because it's like in football, or it's like pro football is not the same as when you're playing with your friends. But at the same time, it's a genius move that made Unicorns of Love win before the game started. Because and the announcers scoffed at Twisted Fate in the jungle. And then they saw him working, and he works beautifully. He took like no damage from these giant monsters, where this new jungle, and we're going to start talking about this now, it's a good transition for it. The new jungle is brutal to classic junglers. You're not going to see Kha'Zix at Worlds. That's my prediction. Unless they change Kha'Zix, he's done at Worlds. I can't play him in this jungle. He's garbage. And he was like
he got targeted because he was incredibly like ridiculously strong.
As a quick side note, and this is for all you guys that are hardcore, they need to boost the damage on his Q again and just stop being babies about it and have one good assassin, because that's what they keep saying, that they don't want people to rely on his Void Spike W thing, or the slow and the heal. They don't want people to rely on that. Okay, make the Q really powerful. That's all you have to do. Then the people will use Q again. Anyway, that was technical crap. Kha'Zix is done in the jungle until they change the jungle or Kha'Zix. I don't know. They're saying that they're going to change the jungle a lot, and that's where their levers are. Which I like that terminology for this. League of Legends is notorious for taking champions that you love and making them crappy. And the reason they do this is for balance. In Magic the Gathering, they balance like crazy, and they keep the sets really tight for balance reasons. Which is why, like, when you play like Legacy Magic the Gathering rules, it's just everything's involved.
It's a free for all, and it's a mess, and it's glorious fun.
Right, it's real fun, but it's not what you would call competitive. League has
it can get competitive. It's just not fair.
Right, it's not. Yeah, there's like 5 decks that will always win. You know, like and League, that's not true because they're constantly balancing. And one of the things that they're trying to do is instead of taking your favorite champion and making them sucky, Lucian slash who's the other one that they target besides Kazakhs? They targeted a few recently, and just made them a lot worse. Like I think Lucian's a lot worse. They still played him though, so what do I know? And they would make them just more fair, I guess. Now what they can do with these different jungle things in 420 is they can ramp things up or take things down. They can make the dragon harder to kill. They can make Baron easier to kill. Whatever they need to do to do this without necessarily changing all of the champions.
Mm-hmm.
That said, they're also updating old champions that just don't make any sense because they made them, like you said, when they were just copying Dota. Like Poppy and Tristana. Like Tristana's like one of the first champions they came up with. She's free. You can get her free. And they're going to slowly rework these old champions, which is
they're reworking some and they're leaving others alone. Like I don't think you're going to see you're not going to see dramatic changes to Ashe because even though she is one of the original champions, there will basically forever be value in like, all right, she's super straightforward. Right. She's an archer, frost arrows. You shoot people with arrows.
Yep. Little vision.
And she's the one that they use in the tutorial.
Yep.
And
she's all over the artwork.
And there's value to that
right.
to that sort of like fundamental sort of simplicity to it. Even though if it's like, okay, well you've got other champions that fill the role and do basically similar things like Jinx and Callista and whatnot. Like there's still room for an Ashe.
Right.
A lot of the ones that they're
changing.
To an
Ashe too. I mean, you can lose to her if you.
Well, she's still
very good, very good.
Viable.
Champion.
She's still good.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones that they're changing are ones like that.
Their theme
Their theme no longer matches, so they're either just like, it was ones that were kind of a mess, like Scion.
Scion is
where it's like, all right, well, depending on which way you're playing, like half of your abilities are useless.
Yeah. And you get an auto stun for clicking. Fuck you.
Yeah.
with,
and it's
with
not
IRL,
that,
you got to earn it.
Yeah, and it's not that Scion was broken.
No,
or
he was broken in a new
bad.
way.
He was broken. Like, yeah, if he was broken, it was in ways of like, it's like, all right, it was not fun. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
He has a bad Arnold Schwarzenegger accent.
Yeah, his design does not communicate his function.
He's ugly.
Yeah, it's
ugly and not a fun way. And I think, and when they're doing this with, they've confirmed for sure they're doing Tristana then Poppy, because Tristana and Poppy have been needing an update forever.
Yeah, because Tristana is another one where it's like, depending on which way you're playing her. And now I think there's a value to sort of having switch hitter type characters like Tristana where you can go, it's like, oh, well, you can go magic damage or you can go physical damage. And they have a way of functioning with that. The problem is that it's like, all right, well, trying to keep those both balanced at the same time, as well as the fact that it's like, okay, well, what does the character communicate?
And another reason why I like Riot so well is another thing that they're really concerned with is theme to these characters. Like, they want Poppy to be a tiny little knight that just, like she's all about honor. She, wants to defend the people, and her kit sort of implies, but mostly
sort of, but doesn't really. And one of the other big problems with Poppy is that playing against her feels like nonsense. Like, it's like, okay, what's she doing?
Invisible powers is what they're slowly removing. Things that you can't see on the screen are slowly being phased out. Zillion finally was the last one that had a global passive, and they nerfed that, and you don't see Zillion anymore. Zillion, and it's not even that he's a bad mid laner, but the only reason they would run him is so you would get his passive. The same thing with Janna for a long time, but I think they ended up tweaking her enough that she's actually a really good support. But
Janna's still really strong.
I really like Janna. So
yeah,
but I bought the Weather Girl skin. I think that was the most brilliant skin until they did the Darius basketball one.
Basketball.
That's so good.
Get dunked.
I'm never gonna buy it because I don't like Darius enough. But man, that is a great skin. And speaking of skins, we kept 420 pretty brief. There's so much to talk about in 420. But the fact that you can jungle as Twisted Fate is really my whole point. And the fact that they won that game, like, handedly, that's what... It'd been different if it was close. It wasn't close. Like, unicorns will love just spoilers. They destroyed them. And they were playing classic characters on the other team. They've had Rumble at the top versus Gnar. Gnar destroys Rumble. You know, and he's brand new. So it's really nice that the competitive scene is embracing what Riot has been saying about this patch, which is strategic diversity. And I think you'll agree.
That's the buzzword, strategic diversity.
I hate that it's a buzzword, but it's accurate. It's 100% accurate. You can play Kayle in the jungle. That's new. I mean, like, you could before, but not like now. Like, the fact that you can have
it would be a Funday Monday kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, you're just goofing around to try it out, or and there's some that still don't work. I really want Yorick to work in the jungle, but what's great about him, man, he doesn't take damage from monsters. But he clears, it takes 2 months for him to clear a camp. Like, it is a slow clear time. You don't die, but then while you're doing that, fucking Warwick has already taken your other half of the jungle. So, at any rate, slightly technical there. But I want to talk about skins because they have 5 really big skins coming out. I showed Dan because he hadn't seen them yet. 2 are they're all part of a greater theme. Because I don't think I mentioned this. It's December 2014. And every December they do, like most video games that have an online presence at all, including World of Warcraft, they're doing a Christmas-oriented thing. And their thing is they have like a small series of skins that kind of fit together. Previously they did Snow Day Ziggs, and they've done Winter Wonderland. Is it Winter Wonderland, Lulu? Is that what it's called? Winter Wonderland?
I think so.
And then the other one is...
basically, they've done winter-themed versions of a number of characters, or holiday-themed versions of a number of characters.
Yeah, like Bad Santa Viger, or Drunk Gragas Santa, or whatever it is.
He's the spirit of Christmas, spirited Christmas present.
Oh, is that what he is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He throws presents, doesn't he? Yeah, okay. Any rate, so they're either Christmas themed or winter themed. This year we're getting Poro themed, which are these adorable little, if you're not familiar with it, they're like a critter from the movie Critters, but goats.
They're tribbles. They're basically tribbles.
They're tribbles, yeah. They're adorable. They're a part of the area of this particular world called the Freyjord, which is basically Ice Town, frozen area. I think there's more champions from the Freyjord than anywhere else.
At the moment, I don't know. I would need to.
I'm just speculating. I'm thinking of them like they're you can do a team. I can think of a team pretty easily.
Oh, easily. I mean, there's more. There's definitely more than 5.
Yeah, there's more than 5. You could fill out a team. After Rek'Sai comes out, I think you can do a team of Void. But
you could already do a team of Void.
Oh, that's right. Because Malthazar and all those guys too. They're Void guys. Anyway. But yeah, so I want to talk about the non-holiday ones first because I think they're going to come out first, and that's their Blood Moon series, and they're adding Thresh and Elise to the Blood Moon. And Blood Moon, for those of you uninitiated, are basically
it's a ninja clan.
Yeah, they're a kabuki. They have a very kabuki-like red, white themed, very Oni-looking demon type look. Very recently, the new champion that just came out, Callista, got a Blood Moon skin. And her best buddy in the world, Thresh, is going to get one, which is amazing. Actually, I think you could do a Blood Moon team now, for sure. Because you do Akali, Thresh in the bot lane, Elise in the jungle, Akali in the mid lane, and Shen at the top lane.
Yeah, you already put Akali in the bottom.
But I say Callista. I meant Callista, sorry. Kalista Thresh bot lane, Akali mid lane, Elise jungle, top lane Shen. There's your Blood Moon team. Go do it, kids. And they're really cool looking. Go ahead, tell me your opinion on either Elise or Thresh.
Like the look of the
because I mean, that's what we're talking. I mean, like the whole thing is the appeal of the look, and like, you know, what do you think?
I really did like. So Elise is fairly subtle. I mean, but that sort of comes with the fact that her primary silhouette is very thin and spindly.
Yeah, she's a spider. For those of you that don't know.
Yeah, she's a spider, and so just because of that, there's not a lot of the details. So for her primary form, the Blood Moon skin is largely just a palette swap, but then her spider form, the back instead of the hourglass is a giant kabuki mask, and I think that looks really cool.
And her little spiders also, their bodies are consistent of kabuki masks as well.
Yeah,
very cool looking.
Thresh, however, looks just absolutely gorgeous. Like
I like him. I do.
He's basically he's an oni. Like they've just turned him into an oni, like straight out of a old woodcut, and it's great.
Yeah. It's my one caveat with Thresh is I'm not a fan of his recall animation compared to Elise's. Did you get to that point in the video for Elise?
I don't know if I saw the no.
She I don't know what this instrument's called. Is bugging the crap out of me. It's the same instrument that Sona plays.
The lap guitar.
The lap guitar.
I mean, it has a real name.
Right. So she strings her recall animation. She strings one of those and then plays it and then disappears, which I love that. I'm not gonna buy a skin anymore if there's no recall animation.
Custom recall animation.
Yes, I need it now.
That's your deal breaker.
It is. Kha'Zix, the rowboat one. It's super cool looking, but I hate his recall animation. I hate it. But the gold scarab one, that recall animation, I love it. It's perfect for Kha'Zix. Like he looks around and he's like, "Rawr!" and then disappears. Perfect. It's what I want. I don't want him to stick his stupid claws in the ground and hump the ground. It looks like he's fucking the earth, and I hate it. It's one of my least favorite things about that character. And the Scarab one totally fixed that. My caveat with Thresh, now he looks amazing from top. I'm not going to disagree at all. They took a character that's kind of a Reaper, Hellraiser type character and definitely turned him into an Oni. The same way that they turned Kalista into an Oni, with her cool horns, and she throws like Oni ghosts that look exactly like Oni. Like their faces with the tail behind them and everything. And Thresh looks like an Oni. He matches Kalista perfectly. His recall animation is not my favorite. He just does sort of a karate type thing and holds it and then disappears. I'll still take it. It's still different than him just kind of standing there. I mean, he does like a Soraka, like where he just like lifts up slightly and then goes away. That was another I got Reaper Soraka for that same reason. She has a great recall animation and her voice is spooky. Oh, and black moons. She throws black moons. It's amazing. So I think those are going to come out. I would be shocked if they're not out like by tomorrow, the 9th. I would be shocked because they're got to be doing the winter stuff next.
It's got to be kicking in soon.
Yeah, they're running out of time. Damn Christmas and shit. So we're gonna talk about those. I think there's almost more to talk about in the winter ones. The Blood Moon ones are great. I think they add to the theme already. And again, they complete a team. You could do a whole team of them. And I can't wait. I'm looking forward to the time where I jump into Team Builder and the entire team is all Blood Moon characters. I'm gonna squee. It's gonna take like 700 games, but I will see it. But the winter ones are really good this year.
I don't know if there is a lot to say because two of them are okay and one of them is riding a Poro and we're basically done. I mean, with everything because Like we can take human civilization and just pack it up.
Yeah,
we're done because Sejuani is riding a giant Poro.
It's amazing. It is everything I want in a skin. 100% is what I want in a skin.
For those who are wondering what the laughing is, Laura just came over my shoulder to check it out when I mentioned it.
It's amazing. The recall animation, she plays with Poros. I love it. I will talk. You said that Oriana's okay, and I have at length about that. But let's talk about Poro Raya Soja. I think we can both agree. And there's nothing against Malthazar. He's an interesting champion. He's named after Mad Monk Malthazar, who wrote the Necronomicon. I love the character, don't get me wrong. I'm not a huge fan of his Christmas skin.
It's whatever.
His little voidlings look dumb to me. I'm not a big fan of it. It's fine. We're not going to talk about that. I have something I want to say about Oriana, and I think you'll come around to my side thinking after I'm done with Oriana. But Poro Rider is easily the winner this year. It's going to be the top seller 100%.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's particularly for the holiday ones, like people generally want ones that are big and flashy.
And fun.
And fun. And now maybe, like, I can see some Malzahar players grabbing this skin because there are a lot of people who, like, when they're looking for a skin, they don't want something like flashy and obvious and ostentatious. I mean, I'm probably going to get Poro Rider Sejuani because it's ostentatious. Not everyone wants that.
No.
And I know there's a lot of champions where, like, in a variant skin, what I'm looking for is something that is, special, but at the same time, some like neutral enough that it's like you feel okay using it all year long.
Sure, and I would argue that of these holiday ones, the Winter Wonderland, even the Snow Day ones are a bit more, but the Winter Wonderland ones tend to be something you could do. But Poro Rider, for sure, you can use that skin all year.
Well, I mean, you're going to because
obviously
it's big, giant, and flashy. But like the Malzahar one it is a little bit more understated. And
you could run that.
I do know like there are players who are looking for like who do want understated something a little bit more understated. That's just sort of a nice looking variant. And a great example with that is with Diana, like Moon Goddess Diana. I love that skin, but it really isn't that far off of her base look.
Those little lotus petals kill me. Like I almost got Elise. I really don't like the Blossom Elise, but I like the petals that she throws. But I like that Diana one too. You were running it, but I didn't really pay attention to it until I was buying skins, and I really like that. It has like a cherry blossom type appeal to it. A lotus obviously is where they're more like a pink lotus thing. They did that with Karma too. Hers is pretty good too. That her lotus one. But Poro Rider, you can use it all year round, and I don't see why you wouldn't. It's as good, if not better. I have a hard time. I don't know which. Poro Rider's better. Okay, but I really like that Russian bear.
Armored bear.
That one's also
the Russian
really
launch
good.
way. Yeah, that one.
Like I could see switching between the two. And I think the core idea there, I think then they realized it after, they have to do the obligatory, dark pig rider, whatever. After they switch the pig out with anything but a pig, it gets way more interesting. Because pig's fine. It's unique that she rides a pig instead of any other, like, weird creature. But when you switch it with a bear that's got a metal jaw, or better, a big floppy trunkless snuffleupagus with a giant tongue, it's even better than that. So Poro Rider, like I said, my prediction is that one's gonna be top seller the second people can buy into it.
I think the only reason why it might not be top seller is just because Sejuani is a less popular champion than Malzahar and Oriana.
That's true.
Fewer people have her.
Yeah, and I didn't have her and I'm glad I got her, actually. I was really worried that I was going to have a champion with a cool skin that I don't like, i.e. Arcade Sona. I just can't play Sona. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I can't do it. But this one, I was playing her, and I really like Sejuani. She works really well in the new jungle. She doesn't work as well as others. She gets countered by a lot of guys, but that's not, at this point, it's not what I'm concerned with, because it's too much fun to play her, and it'll be way more fun with a skin. Which is, I think, if you're not getting a skin to have fun, why are you buying a skin? So Oriana, here's my case on Oriana. One, her recall animation, again, great. She does her little ballerina dance for a crowd of Poros that just kind of appear, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But two, she's super creepy looking. Like, they tried to make her, like, they made her look like whoever made Oriana was trying to make a person. So it's that Uncanny Valley area where she looks really kind of disturbing, if you, like, especially in that splash art. Like, she doesn't, I mean,
she's got creepy doll face.
I love it. That's why I'm in. Like, I wasn't in for the robot Poro. It's still cute. And I like that, but creepy Oriana is really why I'm in. And I don't think any of Oriana's skins are good. Like, I happen to have the Blade one because I got it out of a mystery box. It's okay. Again, it doesn't change the recall animation, so it's like this huge disappointment to me.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I like this Poro Oriana, this the Winter Wonderland, a lot. Like, and it's mostly to do with the fact that she looks like a horrible mannequin. Which I'm sure is not going to be in a popular opinion, and I'm sure most people are going to hate the Oriana, really like Malthazar, and absolutely love Poro Rider. So there you go. There's my 2 cents on the Oriana. Get it for the creepiness. It'll freak out the midliners. So that said, and I don't. We didn't discuss what other MOBAs we're going to talk about. We've already spent the most of this hour kind of introducing ourselves and just talking about League. I do want to talk about, I guess, I don't know, I place where I'm at with other MOBAs. Maybe that's a good intro. Let's talk about the other MOBAs that we play briefly and maybe integrate that for the next one.
The only other one that I play routinely is Heroes of the Storm,
which is new. It isn't out for most people as of this recording.
Yeah, and beyond that, I dip into a lot of other ones out of curiosity. I mean, I think at this point I've given all of the big names a try, like, at least 5, 6, 10 games.
Sure.
Which I realize, like, anyone who's a fan of them is immediately going to be like, that's not enough to know what you're doing, which I would contest is actually a problem. Like, if you can play 10 games of 10 rounds of a game and still have zero clue what you're doing, that's an issue.
I played XCOM. That was the other game I totally forgot I got XCOM because I need a video game board game. And I was doing really, really badly until 10 games in, and I totally understand it now. That's not
like
the same with other MOBAs. like even League, you have to invest a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of these, like with MOBAs, it's still, I would say you're still looking at probably 50 games before you're reaching sort of a level where you can start to digest you can start to digest information critically.
Right.
Which is, a very important point to reach in any sort of learning curve, but it is quite steep. I think one of the big reasons why League has managed to go actually comes down to aesthetic, like the fact that it's a very fun-looking game and it's a very pretty game. It's
even more so now,
game, and it's sort of a fun game to just sort of like fail your way through. It's sort of what enables people to it is enough of a hook to keep people invested to get to that 50 game mark.
Then you look at something like Smite,
and
it's just ugly or weird.
It is so ugly. I've played a bunch of Smite, and Smite's actually one that I come back to. Like, me and my friends will get together and we'll play some Smite. I want to say ironically, but that's not accurate because we do have like totally unironic, like, you know,
right,
authentic fun playing it. But it's a niche sort of thing. I do think it's got its hook, and I think it's a good hook, like with the changes in camera and control. But God, is it an ugly looking game?
Yeah, and I my personal opinion, using mythological gods is a cop-out and bullshit, and it's not. But here's the thing, I guess that's better than Strife, that is basically copying as many League of Legends champions as they possibly can, in my opinion. The game that I played MOBA-wise that I would say I got more than 20 games in was Strife. Mostly because it, like I said, it plays basically exactly like League of Legends. It has a few interesting variants, but not nearly enough interesting variants to make it its own thing, which pains me because they make it here in Michigan. They make it in Ypsilanti.
Yeah.
So, or not Ypsilanti, Kalamazoo, somewhere.
I think it's Kalamazoo.
It is Kalamazoo because it's further than Ypsilanti. I would have drove down there if it was Ypsilanti. No, it's like 5 hours from where I'm at. But yeah, it's Strife is one of those games that it could be something, maybe, but it's just not interesting to me enough yet. Maybe if they add 10, 15 more heroes, I'll come back to it and have a good time with it.
It doesn't have very strong branding, is a huge part of sort of its challenge that it's facing, because Strife sounds a lot like Smite, and so you're automatically dealing with a lot of people who are just going to get confused.
When I
like we're going to mistake, like they're going to hear people, it's like, you know, they're going to hear a friend talking about one, and then they're going to get kind of confused, and they'll like be like, they'll just sort of type in vague terms into Google, and it'll be like, oh, this doesn't look like the one that they were talking about. And the other thing is that visually, like its visual identity is so much like League's. I mean, I realize that objectively it is veering more towards, say, Torchlight, but still at the end of the day, like the distance between Torchlight and League is not that far.
Right. That's part of the reason I like Torchlight so much, actually. But that's Strife's biggest issue is it's where Smite is unique because they changed the angle. They changed their jungle areas enough that I think there's an interest there too. I'll agree with. And again, I guess, you know, where Smite has the upper hand is people have heard of Odin, whereas they've never heard of like Shank or whatever, or Trixie. And I think that and I think that Strife actually has interesting ideas. I think the idea of a witch cowgirl is really good. However, I don't think the idea of a rat that has a bunch of explosives and guns and stuff is a good. I don't think that is very creative. They needed more Trixies and Shanks and less characters that remind me exactly of characters from League.
Yeah.
On top of that, their mechanics are all lifted from League, or like worse versions of League. Using Trixie as a continued example, there's a character in League of Legends named Ziggs who has a very similar attack that is his trademark attack, and she does the same thing, but it's worse. And it's like and I want to like it. I want to like it. That
sort of touches on a bigger sort of question about these types of games, which is you know, like, or about like sort of the genre as a whole. And one of the questions being like, well, do we then handle it almost in the same way that we handle sport? You know, that it's like, here's your base rules. You know, it's like, here's gridiron football.
Right.
You know, and how do you make gridiron football unique while retaining, you know, the fact that it's gridiron football.
Right, but I feel like with Strife, you're just getting Monopoly Dogs or Monopoly Nightmare Before Christmas edition. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like it's enough. I feel like one of the things that Strife could have done is made it more lanes or less lanes or a more unique jungle. Their jungle is so ineffectual to the game. It's like, why do you even have it?
Mm-hmm.
And Strife feels a bit like baby's first MOBA to me. I don't know if everyone will agree with me with that. And I would almost recommend, if you've never played one of these, maybe Strife is a good intro.
Maybe. One of the really interesting things that Strife has, and we discussed this earlier, was that it's got a single player campaign. Like, it's like more than just a tutorial. It actually has a single player campaign, vaguely reminiscent of like Diablo, where you go through it. You're using the same control scheme that you do in the multiplayer arena aspect, but you're going through both a storyline as well as a tutorial. It's giving you abilities, it's teaching you how to use them. And where I think this becomes like notably superior to a lot of the other tutorials is that, one, it's longer, but it's almost disguised. And because of the way that it's structured, it lets them run you through more characters without it having that sort of like tutorial texture to it. Now you're going to learn to use, and now you're playing as a different character, and where you start feeling like, okay, I got it, get on with it. Where you feel like you're being taught.
It's more like the Lego games, where like if you're playing as Iron Man, and then this section you play as the Hulk.
Yeah, it's using
more like that kind of thing. It's more story oriented. Like in the newest one they did is the Dragon Kid, the kid with a dragon. And you actually get to play, like, normally when you play as this character, you're always riding this dragon. Well, in this, what's interesting, again, with the story thing, is they actually let you separate that character and earn kind of the abilities that you have in-game.
Yeah.
Where I agree, and I 100% agree, I think, like I said, I want to like Strife really bad. But I can't not see all of its problems. And I think once they actually just started releasing a new hero that doesn't play like anything I've seen at League of Legends, and a couple others that sort of do, but they don't exactly. That is where I'm like, okay, maybe I give Strife a year, and then maybe I go back to it as a distraction. But I don't see. I mean, like, my opinion on other MOBAs, and it may be wrong-headed. I had somebody told me I should play Dota 2 to get better at MOBAs in general. And I'm just not to that. I don't want to commit to that. But I'd rather play League of Legends for multiple reasons. But one of them is, hey, it's the one that if you end up finding out that you're good at it, there's a professional league there. There's enough people watching it that you could do it for real. Like it, and I'm not saying that you can. It's like the same as going to Hollywood. We've had this discussion.
Yeah.
It's like going to Hollywood. You can do it. But you don't have to make the investment of going to Hollywood.
I think you actually do have better. I was reading something about this, like comparisons of these sort of like pie in the sky dreams, and I think going to Hollywood and becoming an actor was like slightly more possible than becoming a professional video game player.
Well, yeah, I think you got to broaden what professional means. Like, I think I include people that just make money on YouTube enough that they don't have to have another job. But there are very few of them, really. Like, for instance, this is certainly not paying for anything yet. But maybe it will one day, and there's no reason. And what's the point of not trying? Which I think is a good way to end this podcast on an optimistic note. You should get out there and try. And if you're going to get out there and try, pick one of the popular ones to get into to do it. And I think League is going to get you enough diversity now, especially with some of the new champions that we'll talk about.
League has a really good bot mode.
Yes.
Like it's well tiered. The bots are intelligible. They're and they don't get.
Doombots was a constant thing. I wish you could do Doombots all the time.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
I know, I missed it.
And they don't start. They don't really start being cheating assholes until you get up to intermediate mode. At which point, it's sort of there's like that unspoken agreement that it's like, all right, intermediate mode is for like talented players who are looking for at least something. So the bots like blatantly cheat.
Yeah, they know if you're hidden. They know exactly where.
They know exactly where you are.
Don't
and
play
they will,
Twitch in intermediate.
Yeah, and they will.
Point.
they will coordinate, like they will drop 3 ults on you, literally literally simultaneously. It's like, oh, you were visible for a split second through a bush at the like absolute edge of their ability range. It's like, bam, dead. Is they will do that, and it can be frustrating, but
Oh yeah, but I mean, I think I could play it.
But the training and beginner bot modes, like if you're a brand new player, like I think they're good, and they're definitely fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's no. See, these days I'm obsessed with anything related to the dragon right now. Like, so I want to play bot lane support, ADC, or jungle, because it's so like. And this is getting back to 420 a little bit, but because that area of the jungle is more interesting and than ever before. It used to be you'd kill the dragon, you'd get gold, and that doesn't interest me. I would constantly forget the dragon is there. Mm-hmm. But now you get these amazing buffs to all of your champions. Someone tried to tell me...
You get a team buff.
Someone tried to tell me that only the people who killed the dragon get the buff in a game. I was like, what? That's not true. And they go, no, they changed it. I'm like, no, they didn't. Because we all know when they change it, idiot. There's a patch. You can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Like they can hotfix something, but like that would be a massive change.
Yeah.
Like because
and also very
the fact that the thing is that the team buff was one of their like huge preseason selling points in the first place. It's like no, they're not. They're not just gonna. If they were gonna make that change, they would have made that change in testing like ages ago.
I would have read about
because
it
that's pretty fundamental.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, it's not a team buff anymore. It's just a buff for the people who kill. No. It's like,
and they've been and they sold 420 hard, and I don't disagree with their tactics. I feel like I was very informed before going in at what 420 was going to be.
No, they
just
did.
Much like the actual holiday 420.
Well, and it was it's incredibly savvy because they lined it up very well with, and obviously they knew that stuff was going to be coming up because like, everyone is kind of working on the same schedules and the same incentives, and it's like, hey, winter break is coming up. That means there's a whole lot of teenagers with like multiple weeks off. Yep. You've got college students with like up to a month off in some cases, yep. and you've got adults taking a week and something off on their own and doing holiday time and post Christmas just veg time and stuff like that. And so everyone's coordinating to kind of like get that. So while Heroes of the Storm is busy handing out like tons and tons of alpha invites in order to get, fresh blood in there, like streaming and talking about it over the holidays, League of Legends like lined up this like huge patch, and not just the huge patch, but
champion releases,
skin
releases,
routine, like tons of new skins, several new champions, like
I didn't even show you the
champions
skin.
faster. Yeah, more new champions faster than they have done for like the last year and a half.
Right.
And champion reworks and champion like just reskins, like refreshes, and all of this stuff, and like basically. This huge barrage to be like, oh, hey, you're interested in Heroes of the Storm? Well, hey, League of Legends, which you've already sunk hundreds of dollars into, just got better.
Yeah, it's now fun again.
And it's like, oh, you savvy assholes.
Yeah, they're good. I would hate Riot Games if I didn't see in everything that they do how much they love what they're making. And I think the reason why, and this is definitely where I'm gonna call our wrap up, and then I'll get your plugs. Hey, I'm gonna have you do plugs. How's that for fun? But wait, it's a real podcast. Collusion.
Oh, it's conspiracy.
But no, there's something and there's a part of the reason why I despise Smite, and I might be wrong, and I'm fully ready to be wrong. But I feel like Smite is a 100% cash in. I don't feel like they really, really care.
I feel like they care. I just feel like
I feel like Riot cares more.
Bad.
Oh, that's true. Fine. I'll give you that they're bad at it, and that's fine. Commend them for effort. I don't like things that like people cared about the room. That doesn't make it good.
Yeah,
Time I still cared about that.
Mechanically, like here's what I would say is mechanically Smite is fine.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
It's not broken. It works.
It's not broken. It works. It's fun. It's just an ugly game.
Yeah,
and they just like art is not a priority for them.
Right, and I think that Riot, and especially I don't know if you saw this. They just released. They have a new show that's all about fan creations and. It's just this goof show. They don't have to produce that show, and it's actually produced. It's produced as well as any Geek and Sundry or Nerdist production, and they don't need to do that. They don't need to make They don't need to make a 2D animated teaser for a champion. They don't need to do that. They don't need to make a 3D animated post teaser for a champion. And yes, it's marketing because they want you to get hyped about it.
But it's brilliant marketing. It's marketing,
which is the only
marketing.
Right. It's the only marketing I respect. It's got to be brilliant. I don't give a fuck about Radio Shack, but when they did that campaign where the 80s want their Radio Shack back, that was genius.
Yeah.
And they earned every penny they made by hiring whoever that is to do that ad thing because it was entertaining and helping for the market. And where Riot is, I feel like they are, more than most others, especially Dota 2, they're making fun content. That Get Jinxed music video is so much fun. For one character out of 120 gets her own little video. It has almost no actual combat in it. It's just like it, and they made it as their love letter that we, especially as me and you both play Jinx, we both really like Jinx. So it's one of those things where it's like, thank you for giving me that. You didn't need to. I would have kept playing without all of these animations, but it just makes me want to do more because like I don't feel bad for dropping some money on this game because
I'm getting value out of it.
Right.
I see where the value is. That value is fun.
Right.
You know, and fun is worthwhile. Fun is worth something, and so, yeah.
So, thank you, Riot, for giving a shit and making cool things. And Dan, do you have something to plug?
Folding Ideas is my show. You can follow me on Twitter at FoldableHuman.
And the last 2 episodes were great. I don't think I told you that yet, but
thank you.
Really enjoyed them. Are you excited that you're doing a video of some kind and don't have to talk about Gamergate at all? Because right?
Jeez. Yeah. I enjoy talking. I do, on a certain level, enjoy talking about Gamergate because it's just a fascinating.
Yeah. It is. It's so. It
car crash of
now.
Culture.
Yeah, it can only happen now, and only with this genre of people.
Yeah.
And we should. I think maybe we should do. I feel like the sexism discussion might be next week's topic because it really is interesting to me. I think it's or next whenever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna commit you to next week, but we'll try. But or in 2 weeks or whenever we can do it. But thanks for joining me, you guys, and Dan, of course. And we'll see you the next time. In the meantime, play League, buy skins, buy Poro riding Sejuani for 100%. It's worth it. And we'll see you next time. Say goodbye, Dan.
Take care.